Hi everyone, Glenn here from mindovermenieres.com. So I wanted to make a video today to talk to you a little bit about Meniere's disease triggers. Now when you have a Meniere's disease episode, whether it's a full-blown vertigo attack or any of the lesser symptoms, it may seem to have happened randomly, but that's not always or even usually the case. Something most likely triggered your symptoms. Now, there's quite a few things that are known to trigger Meniere's disease, but they vary from person to person. So, knowing and discovering your individual, unique Meniere's disease triggers is going to be an important part of learning to manage your symptoms. Now, a lot of people, myself included, talk a lot about making lifestyle changes as a way to improve your symptoms. Well, part of the reason that this often works is because the lifestyle changes, at least in part, are essentially just an attempt to eliminate some of the more common Meniere's disease triggers from your life. And while eliminating these common, well-known triggers is important, especially when you don't know what your specific triggers are, identifying your unique triggers is very important over the long run. The only problem here is that people are just not usually very good at connecting how they feel with their environment and their diet and their health and what's going on around them. There's just too many variables. So I'll give you an example. If you eat something for breakfast and it doesn't trigger you until later in the evening, you're not just going to automatically make that connection naturally. But when we have the right information in front of us, it's actually very easy to find patterns. The human brain is very good at finding patterns. So the trick is to keep track of everything in a journal. And I created a free tool to help you do just that. It's called the Mind Over Meniere's Symptom Trigger Tool. Hopefully you can see this. It's kind of windy here today. And it's designed to help you keep track of all of the right things that you need to keep track of to identify your specific Meniere's disease triggers. Now I have it in English and Spanish. And not only is it designed to help you figure out what's triggering you, but it also can help you identify what specific things are making you feel better, what I like to call your wellness triggers. So here's how it works. All you have to do is print out a stack of these things and fill one out completely each and every day. Over time, once you have enough days to go back on, you can compare the days when your symptoms were at their worst and see what was in common, what variables might be in common across those days, what might be triggering you. Or you can look at the days when your symptoms were at their best and try to figure out what was likely responsible for those improvements. So I'm going to go over some of the sections and the actual data points that this tool will help you keep track of. I'm not going to hold it up because it's windy, but I have it up here on my computer screen. So the symptom trigger tool will allow you to keep track of the weather, the temperature, barometric pressure, and the pollen count. Pollen is a known allergen, and all of these things can be Meniere's disease triggers. It will let you keep track of your sleep, including what time you woke up, what time you went to bed, and the quality of your sleep. Sleep deprivation is known to be a big trigger, so it's important to keep track of your sleep. Your diet obviously is very important. Certain foods and food sensitivities can certainly be triggers, so this tool will help you keep track of your meals. Sodium content and sugar for each meal both are possible triggers of Meniere's disease, as well as for your snacks. You can keep track of how much water you've consumed and how well hydrated you've stayed. If you've had any caffeine or alcohol or tobacco, there's a spot to keep track of your stress levels if you've meditated, or any notes on things that could be triggering your stress or making you more stressed out. There's a spot to keep track of any medications or supplements you may be taking to see how those could be affecting you. There's a spot to track vertigo attacks. If you had an attack, for how long, how intense was it, and any other relevant notes. If you exercised that day, what kind of exercise, the duration, any relevant notes. And then there's a daily check-in sheet. And you don't have to necessarily fill this out 3 times a day, but you can, and it's very helpful if you do. And there's a spot, each symptom being on a 1 to 10 scale for vertigo, dizziness, tinnitus, aural fullness or ear pressure. This is more commonly known. Brain fog, headache, hearing loss, nausea, and sensory overload. You can keep track of all of these things 1, 2, or 3 times a day. The more information you have, the easier it will be to go back and try to figure out what's going on. And then there's a section for an overall summary of your day and any other pertinent notes. I know this is not going to cover every single thing that could trigger Meniere's disease. So if you ever get an idea that something may be affecting you, keeping notes in that bottom section is always going to be a good idea. Now, I want to stress that once you do figure out what your triggers are, you may not be able to eliminate every single one of them from your life. For example, if you find out you're triggered by the weather, you're not going to be able to change the weather. But you will be able to avoid some of them, and you can focus your energy on the things you can control. But I also want you to remember that knowledge is power. Knowing that a change in barometric pressure triggers you and affects you is better than just feeling sick for no apparent reason when it's raining. So that's all for now. If you've been using the symptom trigger tool and you have any tips or tricks or other thoughts, be sure to leave a comment below. Otherwise, be sure to grab your free copy today and get started over at www.mindovermenieres.com/journal. And of course, I have included links below. That's all for today. Thanks, everybody.